Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So today we have something that is pretty simple but also kind of a cool experiment, I hope. In my hands today we have the ThinkCentre M700. This is a little tiny 1-liter PC, as you can tell by the size of it relative to my hand. This thing is actually pretty cool. It's Skylake generation and it packs an entire desktop class, well, sort of desktop class, I'll get to that in a second, but desktop socket i-series processor. It's got lots and lots of I/O, USB 3, 4 days, as well as built-in wireless. And in today's video, we are going to be upgrading this thing to the maximum. I put that in quotes because we're going to be upgrading the CPU in this to a Core i7-6700. It currently has an i3-6100T in it. Now, these machines would have officially supported the T-series chips. T-series. Those chips are the low power. They basically have half the wattage. So like instead of like 65 watt TDP, they have 35 watt TDPs. And officially that's what these support. But as far as I can tell, and from what I read online, so this is kind of an experiment, we'll see, it should be able to take the full desktop processors, although we are going to have to upgrade our power supply, which for those playing along at home is one of these laptop power supplies. And indeed, if you're looking at the back of the unit, you probably noticed it does have the classic ThinkPad square, I was gonna call it barrel jack, but I guess that's not, it's a square barrel. Anyway, it has one of these. This is a 65 watt charger. And so with the 35 watt chip, that's good enough, but we are going to need to upgrade that if we're gonna be putting a whole 65 watt CPU. We're also gonna have to see if this thing can even cool it. I suspect the answer is sort of. It'll probably be able to burst, but I suspect it won't be able to keep the top clock speeds at all times. Anyway, all of that to be figured out. In any case, I actually don't have the CPU yet. That's still in the mail, but what I do have is a Wi-Fi 7 card, and that's actually the first upgrade we're going to be doing in here. I actually already put 16 gigs of RAM in here, so you can go look at that, I guess, when we open that up, but that one's already happened. But yeah, today we're going to be installing the, well, I say today, well, today for me, this video will probably be everything, but right now we're going to be installing this Wi-Fi 7 card. With probably the most suspicious, if you're in kind of home lab networking, you've probably seen this before. Brand name, really need a career-saving pause there. Anyway, we're installing that. This is the Intel BE200 Wi-Fi 7 card, and what makes this kind of interesting, and honestly this is the most experimental part of this build, is that this Wi-Fi card is a little bit cursed. Now, the long and short of it is, this card has some compatibility problems. Now, typically, Intel Wi-Fi cards are compatible. They're just regular PCIe devices, and they're compatible on any platform, whether that's AMD or even ARM. If it has a PCIe slot and it has the drivers, it'll work. Apparently, these Intel Wi-Fi 7 cards are a bit cursed. They don't work at all, as far as I can tell, on AMD systems, but they do work on Raspberry Pis, so there's some weirdness going on with them. Officially, these are only claimed by Intel to be supported on like 10th gen or 11th gen and newer CPUs, so that's fun. There's also kind of the interesting thing, which is that these Wi-Fi cards usually come in 2 models. Intel will release a 00 style, like this is the BE200, and then there's usually an 01 variant as well, which is the special Intel version that I'm not fully sure what it is, but basically, as far as I understand, it's something connectivity IO edition, where Intel puts part of the Wi-Fi chipset in the system chipset, so you can have like a cheaper Wi-Fi card, proprietary Intel standard. Anyway, this is supposed to be the regular PCIe version, and hopefully we'll see if this works correctly in this 6th gen platform. Oh, I also have little antennas. So anyway, without further ado, that's enough yapping. Let me get this thing open. Conveniently, there is a screwdriver in here, so I will be using that since I don't see where my screwdriver is within reach. And to open this up, it's pretty simple. You just take out this screw and the whole case slides off. There you go, that's the screw. Put that to the side, and then this whole thing just slides forward, just like that. And there you go, that is the inside of the M700. As you can see, there's our CPU socket, and if you look just kind of through the side, you can kind of barely make out that that is in fact a desktop socket underneath that heatsink there, and heat pipe, and that brings the heat over here. So you can kind of tell the cooling solution is not super amazing, but it's also not too bad either. Of course, we have the SSD here. There's also an M.2 slot underneath here, but I learned that that M.2 slot is actually SATA, not PCIe. So there's actually an SSD down there that isn't doing anything. I'm also gonna probably upgrade this SSD at some point. And if we look just under the SSD right here, that is our Wi-Fi chipset. Also of note, if you have one of these, there's an antenna on the back, but there's also an internal antenna, and this will work with no antenna back there. However, your Wi-Fi performance will not be that great, so you definitely still want an antenna back there. But the other antenna, and this is I think also for Bluetooth. In any case, to get to that, we're gonna have to, I can just use our thumbs here. Take out this thumb screw, and this whole bracket will slide forward. This SSD is actually, there we go, just stuck in with double-sided tape. That was how it was given to me. Anyway, this whole thing will come out, and if we look here, let me flip this whole thing around. It's kind of hard to tell from the camera, but this says aux and this says main, so we shall follow that. I'm not actually sure if that is consistent onto the newer card. Here's the new Wi-Fi 7 card, but yeah, we do have aux and main, so I will follow that. I will put the internal antenna onto aux, and the little flying lead here to the outside onto main. Just gonna pop these off, just like that. There we go. I can move this whole assembly to the side. Move that coaxial cable out of the way. And theoretically, I should just be able to take out the Wi-Fi AC card that is in here. I will actually get a better screwdriver. All right, there we go. Take that out, and just like that, there is the Wi-Fi AC card. You can also see it's keyed slightly differently. Does not matter because the slot is the correct key. Here we go. Here's the new Wi-Fi card and the old Wi-Fi card for reference. It's A plus E and E key, something like that. M.2 is always a very confusing standard. In any case, the question, of course, not will it fit, because I'm pretty well. I guess that's fine. Oops, hit the camera. The question is, will it fit? The answer is yeah, it should be. There you go. That'll just go down like that, and I will put the screw back in. I'm also going to take out this NVMe SSD since it doesn't work in that slot. It's just sitting there taking power. There we go. That's not going anywhere. Now we just got to snap our cables back in. So let's put in the main antenna first. And if you watch the FOSSBot build video, you're getting flashbacks to these tiny little connectors. Always very annoying. So I'm just going to cut to when these are installed. All right, that one is installed, snapped into place. Also kind of interesting things, I take out this NVMe SSD. It uses these little plastic clips that you kind of just have to pop off. I really don't think there's a good way to do this. There we go. That was a terrible experience, but we got it. It actually has two sizes as well for the NVMe SSD. But yeah, it has just this little plastic clip. I guess just friction fits in there. I guess it works. It's not the most elegant solution, that's for sure. In any case, I should be able to pop this in. Now the carrier for this does have screws. And whoops, I'm letting this antenna just flop around. The carrier for this has screws, as you can see, or screw holes where the SSD can mount. But for one reason or another, whoever owned this last just put a little bit of double-sided tape, so you know it works. Anyway, you can see there are these little metal pegs, and there's one right back here. You can kind of barely see it. Oh, there you go. These metal pegs slot into these slots right here and here, and then you have the screw hole for the thumb screw. I'll put this in, and then we'll plug this connector in, and then we should be good to boot this up, and hopefully it works and is recognized. And there we go. This is now secured in. I'm going to now attempt to finagle this cable in, so wish me luck. All right, and this one has now been clipped in. It'll just rest. It's got these little nubs on the bottom. This is out of frame. I'll just nudge you forward. There you go. Oh, also fun fact, this is the power button right here with the LED, but there's also this mystery, I think, oh, that's also not in frame. There's also this mystery, I think, reset button that just sort of peeks through the grill of the case, like through here. So that's kind of fun. Our old Wi-Fi card is here. I'll set that to the side. NVMe SSD, that's useless. Also, for the sake of the stability of this antenna, I'm just gonna pop the lid back on as well. Oh, actually, before I do that, don't forget to put this thumb screw back in. Now I can throw the lid back on. Just for good luck, I won't put the screw in though. Let's take out these little antennas. We only need one of them, although this is a screw. During testing of this computer, I used this antenna that I just yoinked off of another computer. But as you can tell, proportionally, I mean, it's a great antenna, but it's a little bit long and it looks a little silly when it's sticking out like that. So in this case, I bought these tiny little antennas, which honestly, I might get another pair for my desktop because this is quite nice. I don't really use Wi-Fi on my desktop, and the antennas on that get in the way for sure. There we go, that'll stick up like that, which is a much more reasonable size. And there we go, that is installed. A little bit of wiggle from the connector. I think that's as tight as that goes though, so that's good enough, and that looks, I think, a lot nicer installed there. Definitely seems like it, let me pick you guys up, it's meant to be there. So there you go. And of course works just fine in this orientation as well, which is the orientation we will be testing. So now this display only has, well, it has VGA and then 2 display ports. So I have this Best Buy Essentials DisplayPort adapter, which honestly kind of not great. It caps out at 1080p, which is not ideal. It's okay for the monitor we're going to be testing on though, but also kind of interesting, it doesn't have any DisplayPort locking mechanism, which is probably violating the DisplayPort spec, but you know, who cares. Anyway, we'll get HDMI plugged in here, just like that. And I'll get the power plugged in and reorient you guys to the screen. We'll boot into Fedora and see if this works. All right, I think we're all ready. Usually with this kind of thing, just posting is not that exciting, but since we know that this does cause issues on AMD platforms on posting, you know, we might as well be here when I press the power button, which I will hit now. We have a green LED on the ThinkCentre, and hopefully we're gonna get, yep, we're posting. So let's see, I guess the next thing is, will this work in Linux? From one of the posts online that I looked at, supposedly they had this running on a 7700K, which is one generation newer than this, but kind of in the same ballpark. According to them, they got Wi-Fi 7 working, but without MLO, which if you don't know is multi-link operation. It's one of the features of Wi-Fi 7, which is that it has the ability to basically bond the different channels available to it together to have more throughput. So for example, it can combine 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, or 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz. Apparently that did not work on the older Intel platforms with this Wi-Fi card, so we will see. In this room, I have a UniFi 7 Lite access point, so we should be able to test all the capabilities. And hey, check that out, we got Wi-Fi. Let's go. Now, I mean, we're here, we might as well connect. All right, so my phone died at a very inopportune time, but we're back, and I think it's time we run a speed test and see just how fast we can get with Wi-Fi 7, and that is awesome. We're getting almost 800 megabits per second, just about, on fast.com. Let's go to speedtest.net and see what we get on that. So we'll get that speed test going. I don't actually have 6 gigahertz here in the house, but yeah, that is pretty good. It seems to be getting a little bit lower speeds on speed test, though that could also be a result of CPU bottlenecks, since I have not installed the i7 yet. But there we go, 700 megabits per second down, and 800, a cool 860, 870, 900? Can we get 900 on the upload? 900? I saw, hey, there we go. Very nice. So this is clearly working out perfectly. Now, of course, it's the next day, and the upgrades don't stop. We got the Wi-Fi in, but that's only just part of it. We got a couple of cool things. I've knocked the camera. We got a 1 terabyte Samsung 870 EVO. This is basically the best SATA SSD you can buy today that's kind of still available. The Crucial MX 500 is no longer in production, actually, so this is pretty much as good as it gets with SATA SSD, so we're going to be installing that. And of course, the star of the show, I think, this Core i7 6700, which hopefully will work, given the fact that we are basically doubling the, not only are we doubling the TDP, but we're also going to be doubling the number of cores and threads. So this is going to be quite the fun upgrade. This is obviously just a used CPU I got off eBay, hence the thermal paste. We'll clean that up and get some nice fresh stuff on there. And then finally, we have this cable, which of course, this is just your standard Lenovo style slim tip kind of rectangular power adapter. This is obviously what goes into the ThinkCentre, but on the other end of this cable is USB-C. So I'm pretty sure I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but we are going to need a more powerful power supply to actually deal with this 65 watt TDP processor, and the original power supply is only, well, it's only 65 watts itself. So I bought this, which theoretically, now this is all very experimental and also very suspicious. This is a 135 watt in quotes power adapter. Now the reason I put that in quotes is, of course, USB-C only officially does 100 watts in the base PD profile. Of course, there is now, and you can go up to 200 watts. But this possibly uses non-standard power. Honestly, 100 watts should be enough for us anyway. So we'll see if this thing actually does 100 watts over the USB-C. Since I've seen some reviews online that some of these adapters, in particular the little dongle style adapters, some of them are marketed as 100 watt capable, but are actually only 65 watt, which is obviously a very common USB-C power, since you don't need the special cables to run 65 watts, but you do need to do for 100 watts, I believe. In any case, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. We have this cable, and I have a 100 watt U-Green power supply, I believe, that we'll use, and so hopefully that'll keep everything. I've actually already tested this, and it does boot with the i3 that's inside the ThinkCentre. In fact, the entire time you were watching that speed test, I was using this cable, but of course that doesn't really tell us much, since that CPU really only draws like 20 watts at most. So I think it's time we now take apart the ThinkCentre and get that CPU installed. All right, so I've got some thermal paste. This is a Cryonaut Extreme bag. I actually think I have another tube. Yes, I have some Noctua. Does this NT81? Of course, my tube of Cryonaut Extreme. I guess we'll just go with the Cryonaut. I think I have some left in here, and totally overkill. I mean, really, all of this is overkill, but I guess we'll go with the Cryonaut Extreme just for fun. We'll save that Noctua tube. Plus, it's pink. That's fun. In any case, I've also cleaned off the CPU cooler, so let me go grab the ThinkCentre. Actually, since we're here, might as well do a little quick unboxing on the Samsung SSD. Now, of course, I'm gonna have to flash the OS image into this, or onto this drive, I should say. Now, I have a USB adapter, SATA adapter enclosure that we can use. So I'm actually not gonna put this in the computer yet. We'll test the CPU first, get all of that working, and then we'll swap the drive out, since I have to image the OS. But there you go. It's a Samsung 870 EVO. Cool. I mean, the actual SSD is about that big, and the rest of that is empty space, and it's a nice little metal enclosure. So we'll put that off to the side. All right, so this is where things get a little bit interesting, since I have not taken this computer apart to the CPU socket before. So we're gonna have to see how that looks. There we go. There's a little antenna that we installed. A little bit loose in there. We'll see if I can get that tightened. But in any case, as far as I can see, we need to probably take out these two screws and these two screws, and that's all I can see. And hoping the fan will just lift off, and then we can get the heatsink out. I see there's another screw right there, and probably one right on that side, maybe, or not. So I'm just gonna start taking out screws and seeing what happens. These screws seem to be captive, since they are just they're not coming out all the way. I'm going to go with this screw next. Lift you guys up, there you go. Okay, so these screws come out all the way. All right, then I'm gonna take this screw out. Also comes all the way. And with that, so this fan lifts out. That's easy enough. I'll just leave that to the side there. So this is good. There are two more screws here, which now that I look at this, I should have taken the fan out. If you're gonna be doing this, take the fan out first. That way you can do the cross pattern on these screws, since this is clearly the clamping screws on the CPU socket. But anyway, that's fine. You of course want to have equal pressure as you screw and unscrew these, so you don't bend the CPU or socket. And I think this whole thing will just lift up. Yep, that comes out. All right, so I got that out. I actually think the speaker cable was the thing in there. So I'm just gonna flip this over as well. And try not to knock the antenna too much. And there we go. We have a freaking desktop socket. That is so cool in a computer this small. And I'm gonna, well, I guess we'll take out the CPU and I'll have to clean up the thermal paste here as well. But doing this upside down is a little annoying, but oh, there we go. And check that out. That is our i3 6100T, the 35-watt TDP chip. And in theory, we grab our i7, throw that down there. We'll take out very carefully the i3. Ooh, so shiny. And we will just carefully drop in the i7. So there you go. We'll close the latch. And there we go. That is the new CPU installed. So let me get this cleaned up and we'll apply our thermal paste and button this thing back up and hopefully it'll boot and run. There we go. That is a nice and shiny copper block right there. And of course, the most controversial part of any computer build, which is the thermal paste application, which I will now proceed to blur out for your viewing pleasure and for my own sanity. There we go. There's the thermal paste. Probably should be enough. Now we just got to carefully flip this whole thing over. Oh, I've got some cryo knot on my fingers. And yeah, that just slides back in. Now we should be able to go through with the little cross pattern I was talking about. So you want to tighten each screw just a little bit in an X fashion. And you want to do that, of course, to make sure that the CPU is getting equal pressure applied on it. And it'll also make sure that the thermal paste spreads out evenly. All right, well, with that, the CPU cooler is installed nice and securely. That was pretty easy. Now we just gotta flip the fan back over, and you can kind of see that the chipset doesn't really have a heatsink on it, but you know, probably has enough airflow just from the fan itself. And this whole thing just sort of drops in just like that. And then now we have the 3 black screws to install. All right, well, with that, I'm going to take the i3 out of frame and put that into the little baggie that I got with the CPU. So that's all bagged up. And at this point, I think the smart thing to do will be to flip the machine over and plug in our USB-C power and video and see if this thing freaking posts. Because that is going to be the true test here before we button everything back up. All right, so I have a display port over here. Let's get that plugged in. Let's plug that into this slot. That's a little display port HDMI adapter, and that's all we need. My keyboard's already plugged in. Let me get this USB-C power cord plugged back into the Ugreen power adapter for those playing along at home. It's one of these with the multiple ports. Anyway, we will plug that in, and I'll plug that into the wall. And we'll get that plugged in. But first, let me reposition you guys so you can see the first boot. All right, you're pointed at the screen. I'm about to plug in power. Power is in. And moment of truth, hitting the power button. Green light, fan spin. Uh-oh. All right, well, we booted, and we are getting a CPU fan failure. Let me get you off of this for a second. That is impressively loud. Kind of interesting to see the American Megatrends BIOS. You usually don't see that. Did I dislodge the fan connector? That is the question, I think. I can only imagine fan air is, you know, let me shut this off for a second. Well, it posted, so that's good. I might have dislodged one of these cables, so let me check that and I will get back to you guys. Okay, so I'm going to spare you all from watching all the debugging I did here, but basically the summary is that I tried some various things, like checking the fan connector, which required me to take out the VGA port, trying the original power adapter, putting the i3 back in, and probably some other stuff. But basically the actual cause of the fan error and the high fan RPM issue was the result of this BIOS setting under the intelligent cooling engine section. I had it set to better thermal performance, something I just set, I don't know, at some point. But changing it back to the default better acoustic performance option made the error go away. So why was this the case? I have no idea. My best guess is something about the way that it measures temps, and this option has a different way of doing that with a non-T-series processor? No clue, really. But anyway, it works, so let's get back to the video. Ladies and gentlemen, oh my God, listen to that. It is cool. It is running at the right speed. We have the 6700. I cannot believe the fix was to go into the BIOS and changing that to better better acoustic performance got rid of the error. Now that doesn't really make any sense to me, honestly. That has to be like a weird BIOS bug. We're up. I guess I might as well hit it with the, oops, I messed that up. Might as well hit it with the stress test. And I mean, it is working absolutely perfectly. There we go, we're drawing 50 watts. Fan is there. The CPU temperature, I guess we're gonna have to watch and see where this ends up. But man, that is freaking awesome. I also have to probably repaste the CPU since some of the old paste got mixed in when I was testing the i3. We have the fan ramping up as it should. Yeah, our package has already hit 87 degrees, but it's working. So there you go. That's the option. You have to go into the thermal settings in the BIOS and turn it to better acoustic performance, and that'll fix the CPU fan error. That is wild. Anyway, lest I go and make this video any longer than it needs to be. God, well, you know, at least we don't do the BIOS. Anyway, I'm gonna take off the heatsink again, put a fresh thermal paste application on there, and we should be good. I'm gonna put the VGA back on and button this thing back. Well, actually, we're not even done yet because I have yet to install the SSD. So I'll get this all put together, and then we'll tackle that later. But it's working. It's working. Look at that. We got a 6700. All right, so new thermal paste is in. Everything is screwed in. This is all screwed in. I put the VGA port back in. I've also just tightened the antenna so it no longer wiggles, which is very nice indeed. That just is in there. It has occurred to me that I might as well just install the Samsung SSD while we're here, since I can put this in the enclosure and then image from that onto the drive. So I might as well take this out. So I've already taken the thumb screw out. Just carefully, there we go. Pull the drive. Now, again, this drive is held in with double-sided tape. I think it's occurred to me why that is the case, and that is this caddy is actually larger than the SSD itself, which is kind of interesting, though it is kind of aligned here. So clearly the reason that seems to be the case is because screws might not reach. Honestly, that double-sided tape is pretty sticky, and I don't really anticipate, I mean, the thing is, this laptop is coming with me to and from the office, so I'm doing my work stuff on this computer. So this is getting thrown in a backpack, which is why I'm sort of hesitant to just stick with the sticky tape solution. But then again, I mean, it's being held in by the SATA slot. I think it might be fine, especially if there really was a separate caddy that was meant to go in here, because yeah, you can see how like it's not. Oh wow, that's already sticking. So I think the double-sided tape will probably be okay. I just have to make sure that this is actually aligned in there properly. I don't think that's actually going anywhere. So I'm probably just gonna stick with that. Toss this back in, and hopefully it all sort of lines up here. And it does. I'm just gonna push that. If anything, I can take a piece of foam or something and just stick it on top as well, just so there's no gap. I was plugged into the slot, and yeah, there is pretty decent. This side I might be able to stick, you know, end screw in, just like one, but I don't really have any screws nearby. So okay, just to make myself happy, I brought out my kit of varying length M3 screws, and I found a kind of reasonably long one. I just used something of this length because I knew this was gonna annoy me if this SSD was not at least kind of screwed in. So I've now, and there's nothing on this side of the SSD, so really the length doesn't even matter. I've just, you can kind of tell right there, put in a screw, so it's, you know, there's obviously a gap, but it's at least holding in the drive a little bit. I can't really get to the other side here, as you can kind of tell, so that's good enough. That's just in there. Now it's sort of screwed in. You know, this drive is not going anywhere, obviously, so I think that's fine. All right, so I have a Fedora Live USB just here. That is booting up on the screen right there. And I have this hard drive enclosure. Now, this is a very overkill enclosure. This is meant for 3.5-inch hard drives, but should work just fine for this 2.5-inch. SSD, just like that. There we go. It looks so small in here. It's just got the cursed era of USB, that is USB BE200. So I will plug this in. And we should just be able to DD the image straight from here onto the internal Samsung. All right, here we are in the Fedora Live environment. We just pull up a terminal. Here we go. You know, one of these days I'll bother to set up screen recording with a capture card. In fact, I have an HDMI capture card like somewhere back there. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. If we hit ourselves with an LSBLK, we should see, there we go, SDA is our unformatted Samsung 870 EVO. Where's the box? 870 EVO. I'm gonna keep miscalling this many things because I have all those drives. I have an 860, I believe, little M.2 SATA. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. SDB is our live, and SDC, of course, is the 256 gig Patriot SSD. So all I really have to do here is just sudo dd input file equals /dev/sdc, which is our, well, now USB SSD. Output file equals /dev/sda. We'll set our block size to 4 for performance, and status equals progress so you can watch. And that should be good. We'll hit this, and there we go. It's copying away, and if I point you guys down, you can see we got some blinking, and we got some blinking, and that's gonna be copying at 430-ish megabytes per second. It's pretty good speed. That's about what we'd expect from the read on this Patriot drive and the write on that Samsung drive. So I'll let that go, and then we will head into CF disk to expand the partition, and then we can expand the file system, and then hopefully everything will finally work and we can end off this video. It appears that it's failed to copy. We have an I/O error. What in the world? Let's take a look at D message. Oh, I think the drive reset? What? Uh-oh. Well, by the power of doing exactly the same thing and changing nothing, it worked, so I'm just gonna ignore whatever that was, the I/O error, and I think we're in the clear. In any case, what we now need to do is go in and enlarge the actual GPT partition. That is GUID partition table, not chat GPT. In any case, cfdisk/dev/sda. And here we go. So we have our EFI boot partition. What I can only imagine is our, just our actual /boot. We can just go in here and resize, fill up the entire drive, write that out, and there we go. Now this is a ButterFS partition. Okay, so I think what I need to do is I need to mount this partition. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to unplug there you go. I've disconnected the SATA SSD. Take that, put that off to the side so there's no confusion. Now we have this Fedora partition, which is our root partition. I'm gonna mount that. There we go. So these are two ButterFS subvolumes, our root and home partitions. I think the command here should be ButterFS file system resize. I'm hoping I can just do 100%, and then the mount point, which is this. I'm gonna run sudo on that. Okay, so 100% is not allowed. All right, let's see. I think you can do max. Oh, all right, there we go. I think that has worked. Seemingly, yeah, that is now 900 gigs. Very nice. If we hit ourselves with a DFHT, we can see, there we go, our ButterFS size is now 930 gigabytes. Now the last thing we're gonna do here is a sudo fs trim, and this is just to make sure the drive, again, I'm pretty sure this should work with ButterFS. Seemingly, I can see the hard drive light blinking away, and this is just gonna trim the drive. So because we just moved the entire 256 gig block by block to the new SSD, the actual SSD controller has no idea what files, what I should say is the SSD has no idea what's free space inside that 256 gig. Oh, I should have done -B, oh well. It would have told us how much it freed, and it probably would have been like 200 gigs. But yeah, this just tells the SSD which blocks are actually free in that file system. So you should be getting peak performance now. That should be it. You can just sync, and we'll shut down the live disk, and then we should be good to go. Maybe I'll run some benchmarks. We'll see once we boot up. Hopefully that will boot up correctly. And that's it. I think we've done it. We've upgraded. So let's recap what we've done to this machine. We've gone from, I'm just taking out the live USB. We've gone from 8 gigs to 16 gigs of RAM. Did that one off camera. We installed a Wi-Fi 7 card. So we went from wireless AC to Wi-Fi 7. We have gone from an i3 6100T 35 watt TDP chip to an i7 6700 65 watt chip. And we've, USB-C modded the ThinkCentre with this USB-C to slim tip adapter. And here we go, we are in. Bring up about this system, of course. Fedora KDE Plasma Desktop Edition with our 8 i7 threads, 16 gigs of RAM, the HD graphics 530, and we should be able to bring up DF. Yeah, we're 900 gigs for Samsung SSD, and since we're here, might as well hit us with a smart CTL-A/dev/SDA. And this will give us all these statistics about our drive, so feel free to peruse that. There we go, there's our Samsung 870 EVO running just fine, SATA 3, and temperature 51 degrees Celsius. So, it's gonna be a little bit warm in here, but yeah, there we go. I think we're good. I think the only thing that's really left to do is to install and launch Minecraft, since that is, as we all know, the best benchmark. So let me just install Prism Launcher, and then that's more of a. I think the Intel HD graphics has stayed the same. I think it was 530 on the i3 as well. So that's not really a big difference, but All right, it is benchmark. Oh, this is the wrong terminal. So Minecraft is installed and launched, and we're currently using 15 watts-ish on the new screen here. Let me just go into creative, and I'll readjust you guys. There we go. So here we go. This is world generation speed test. You can hear fans ramping up. 3.3 gigahertz. Package has already hit 91 degrees Celsius. But yeah, we are at 3.6, 3.3 gigahertz, 40 watts on the CPU. Let's get into game here. And we're on Fabulously Optimized. So that is a mod pack that integrates a number of performance mods, and honestly looking great. I've not changed any of the settings. So this is fancy graphics, 1.20, 1.10. You guys can't see the frame rate. There we go. Let me actually just readjust that. There we go. Yeah, this is this Minecraft with Fabulously Optimized, so I expected it to be pretty good here on the Intel HD graphics. There we go. Now you can see a little bit more. 200 FPS. The fan has no longer ramped up, so that is pretty good just during world generation, which makes sense. There you go. Works pretty well. Let's just sort of fly. There we go. You can hear the fan a little bit. And if I just bring up the CPU, I should be able to pin this actually. Should be able to keep above others. There we go. And we'll just stick that to the side there we go. So we can watch package power in the corner. 42 watts, 2.8, 2.9 gigahertz as we're flying and generating chunks here. It's definitely some throttling for sure, but also our CPU utilization is not quite 100% in this case. So yeah, there we go, 3.3 gigahertz. And you can see the uncore, which I believe is where the GPU power consumption is listed under, is using some of our watts here. So this is pretty good. This is not what this computer is going to be doing. This computer will mostly just be sitting around doing VS Code and Docker compiles and things like that. So this is perfectly adequate performance in my view. Honestly, really goes to show how far you can go with. This is 6th gen. Like, this is not even. That's almost that is 10 years old now, I think. Right? This would have came out in 2015. Let me just fact check myself there. It's an i7 6700. When was this launched? I believe, yeah, Q3 2015. So this was a 10-year-old CPU. It's working absolutely fine here for all my tasks. Yeah, there we go. A bit more of a interesting stress test than just Minecraft, I guess. Here's the Linux kernel compiling the standard def config. And yeah, once again, it is pretty much staying together. You know, it's not falling apart. It's not shutting off randomly. We're boosting to 3.4 gigahertz, what I guess is base clock basically for the CPU, which is fine. But what I expected, our package is about 88 degrees, 87 degrees, and we're drawing just under 50 watts. This has been going on for a few minutes, so yeah, there you go. That's it can compile. Oh, I also forgot to mention that these numbers are with Thermal D running. So if you don't know what Thermal D is, it's basically, I think it's a package from Intel, or at least it's a implementation of something from Intel. Basically what Thermal D does is it manages your CPU's clock speed and such. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure, but it's basically user space implementation of power management for Intel CPUs. A lot of this is implemented on the Windows side through drivers. On laptops benefit a lot from Thermal D, but I also installed it here just because this is a kind of a thermally constrained environment. So yeah, these numbers are with Thermal D running, which probably explains why the package temperature is staying under 90 degrees. I'm pretty sure the CPU will go to 100 if it could, but Thermal D is limiting that, and honestly that's probably a good thing from a fan noise perspective as well. So yeah, anyway, we'll see how long this compile takes. And there we go. With that, we are clocking in a 7-minute and 5-second x86-64 def config kernel compile time, so I think that's pretty respectable, and the ThinkCentre seemingly was happy all through that. Didn't seem to be any major throttling, like VRM throttling or anything like that. So yeah, with that plus Thermal D, it'd be working out pretty well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was not nearly as smooth as I expected. There we go. We have basically completely tricked out this Lenovo ThinkCentre Tiny M700, you know, minus the like Coffee Lake mod or whatever for the BIOS, and doing CPU modding with the, you know, taping over pins and stuff. Besides that, this is pretty much as good as you're gonna get on here, minus a, you know what, never mind, that's not the point. This is a pretty awesome little computer. It's USB-C powered, it's got Wi-Fi 7, it's got an i7, 60 gigs of RAM, maybe upgrade to 32 in the future, but besides that, hope you guys enjoyed this little video. Hope you enjoy the Minecraft music, CPU statistics. Oh, and also, right, hard drive upgrade, 1 terabyte, Samsung 870 EVO. But with that, make sure to subscribe. If you like this video, you'll probably like my last one where I built a open source hotspot using a Raspberry Pi that I took to Japan. And yeah, make sure to leave any comments below if I made any mistakes or anything like that, you know, engagement. I suck at outros. See you guys. All right, it's time for a little bit of a bonus post-credit scene. Turns out there's actually a little bit more modding that I can do to this machine. I didn't quite realize how active the modding scene for this particular series of ThinkCentres is. And really, I've mentioned this a little bit in the video. I don't think I talked about it. There's this Serve the Home thread basically going over how you can mod the BIOS in these ThinkCentre Tinys to unlock Coffee Lake, and I believe Coffee Lake Refresh as well. So that's like 9000 series Intel CPU. So like I could feasibly put like a 9700 in here, which is just crazy. But then from this thread, I actually learned that not only can you mod the OEM BIOS, there's actually a core boot port for this machine. So we can actually replace the proprietary Lenovo BIOS with open source firmware and EDK2 for UEFI, which is really cool. And this pretty much sealed the fate of this machine. Not now, but in the future, I am almost certainly going to be installing core boot. And then from that thread, I learned that not only can you install official Intel i7s like the Coffee Lake CPUs, there are also what I can only describe as cursed mobile Xeons that you can get on AliExpress, and basically these Chinese sellers have taken, you can actually see this is the the long outline of a BGA Xeon, but put onto this transposer board that converts it to LGA 1151. Now this is really interesting because this chip, so this is the 2276M Xeon. For reference, if we look at Passmark, we get 8000 on the 6700, and you have to remember that we are somewhat limited in terms of our watts as well, so we're only getting like 45 watts effective cooling on that machine. If you look at the 2276, 11,000, almost 12,000 on the multi-threading rating. So this thing is a freaking fast CPU, and it's got 6 cores, 12 threads, and it's got a TDP of 45 watts. So if we throw this chip into the computer, it'll probably be able to get that full performance. And then I discovered that Lenovo actually produced a dual heat pipe version of the cooler with a fully copper heatsink, which is rated for 65 watts. So not only can we put a much faster cursed Xeon that has a lower TDP, it should be able to boost higher for longer if we get one of these heatsinks. So in the future, make sure you get subscribed, because I think the ultimate ThinkCentre M700 is going to become even more ultimate. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.